Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of As the Walker Turns. And I am here today with my colleague, Amber.
Thank you. Thank you for having me today.
Amber, how do we know each other?
Well, I work with you and for you. I'm your VP of Sales.
Awesome.
And you love me. I'm your favorite.
Absolutely. Everyone take note, okay? So, Amber, we're going to talk a little bit today about tours from the community perspective. We were really lucky to be able to talk to Andy, one of our residents, and he kind of shed some information on what he was looking for and what he thinks that some potential residents would be looking for. But I'd like to hear more from you guys. You're in the weeds. You're seeing hundreds of people a year. So we're going to get into that. But before we do that, we all have a book in the back of our head that we should be writing, right, someday. What do you have anything you want to share? A funny story or something, or something meaningful?
Well, yes. Since we're going to talk about tours today, I'll tell you my favorite tour story.
Okay.
So when I started with the industry, I took a position as director of sales at a community. It was a CCRC. And on my second week after training, my regional decided to have me go shopped. And and it was actually her sister.
So her sister came to make, so everyone knows what a ghost shop is. So her sister was sent in to make sure you're doing your job.
Yes, to make sure
Undercover.
I learned what I needed to learn.
Okay, got it.
And it was a full mystery or ghost shop. So it started with the phone call.
Okay.
And I guess I aced that because we talked for a good 40 minutes on a call-in.
Wow.
And then she came in for a tour, and we spent most of our time in the discovery room, just like we train our sales teams. And then we did the walking tour. And I thought it was going great, but she stopped me in the walking tour. I took her, it was an entry fee community. I took her into a home. And right out of the gate, we walked in, and what came out of my mouth was, I think this home's going to fit your needs. I'm so excited to show it to you. But don't worry too much about those porta potties in the back. That apartment that's being built has no affiliation with us. Those will be gone soon. And she stopped me and she said, "Oh, sweetheart, you've had the best phone discovery, the best discovery. She told me who she was. She's like, never, ever, ever talk about the porta potties or assume that people see what you see. Just keep your mouth shut on the walking tour. Half of us can't see it, and the other half of us, well, we don't even know what it is." So that is my tour story.
Okay. We don't focus on porta potties.
We don't focus on anything. We don't assume that our prospects see or feel what we see or feel.
Oh, that's fascinating. Okay. All right. Well, kind of diving into that a little bit more. So let's just say you have someone that, and I've kind of been describing to people, sometimes you're moving into, if it's specifically assisted living or memory support, it's usually need-based. Sometimes you have a little bit of a lead time. Like my mom, we had a good 18 months. Right. And sometimes it's like, I need someone tomorrow. Like, we're doing this tomorrow. So let's start with the one where you have plenty of time and planning and all of that. What are those experiences like for you? What are you looking for to get information out of the residents and truly what they're trying to get at the end of the day?
Yeah, of course. Well, I think it starts when they inquire, whether they walk in or they call in or however they would inquire. Every level of care we have is needs-based, if you think about it. They had some sort of something happen in their life, even if they're looking for independent living, to have the courage to muster that up, to be able to call us. They have gone through significant changes, or there's significant changes coming. So everybody, by the time they have called us, they have thought about it for a while. They have gone to numerous senior living websites. They have maybe even driven by our community. So I really look for getting to know them instead of, we're in a really neat place in 2025 where we're not having to educate as much. We're getting to learn. And that is my favorite part. We're getting to learn about why they called today. And that takes some of the pressure off of educating and being nervous when we're on the calls or the tours with them. But really, anybody who calls, no matter what level, it is kind of, what can I learn from them? That's what I'm looking forward to.
Is it important that the residents are as transparent, especially with assisted living and memory support? Does it do anyone any favors if they're, like mom only has fallen once when maybe she's fallen 10 times, or, not being very upfront and transparent about their care needs? Does it generally help or backfire?
Oh, no, it backfires. It is, a different school of thought. It's not like you're trying to get your child into preschool here.
Right.
right? Mom or dad has a need. And if you're trusting the professional that's telling you about the community, if they've built that rapport and relationship and you trust, it should be a free for all because that person outside of you does have the best interest of your loved one in mind. They want to get them placed in the right spot in the community.
Hopefully, yes, absolutely. What should the person expect when they, let's just say they Google you and the community comes up and it's close to your house or whatever the deal is? What should the process look like, kind of from start to finish? I mean, I know everyone's a little bit different, but what are some of the similarities that you should see community to
Community. Well, I'm going to be very biased to the rich here. Full transparency. I really pride myself in that we have full transparency of floor plans, pricing, all of those things that let them self-educate before they call in.
Mm-hmm.
That way, we're just seeing what the need is and we're handling any objections or beards, as I call them, things that they put up as to why they want to wait and not move in.
What do you mean by beard?
A beard is when you say, I would move today, but I'm waiting on a view.
So an objection.
It's an objection, and all it means is there's something more underlying. I just don't trust you enough yet, or you haven't created enough value for me to tell you what's really I'm thinking.
It's kind of like a mask, or
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
All right, gotcha. So that's an indicator you need to dig a little further, or create that sense of trust so that they will share.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, all right. So they typically call or they'll email, maybe,
yes,
depending on the situation.
Correct.
All right. And what would you say that first conversation usually looks like?
So that first conversation is really about asking for the next step. The next step might be another phone call to talk more, or maybe there's other family members involved. How can I visit with them, either virtually or in person, or getting a tour, getting somebody to come in. So the focus on that needs to be what the need is and the next step to progress it forward. Mm-hmm. And in our case, it usually ends up being a tour. That's what we want out of it, is for them to come in and bring their loved one, bring their family, so we can tour, show them the community. But more importantly, see what's going on, hear what's what's important to them, and be able to show I care about what you care about, and I'm hearing what you're saying, and I want to help you find the right place for mom or dad.
So it's coming from a loving place.
That's empathy.
Yeah, it's an important quality in this business, yes. I'm finding. After 20 years. I know that. That's very important. So let's just say, okay, you've done, the initial conversations. It's time to tour. The resident drives up. What can they expect when they start walking around, or maybe they need a wheelchair, whatever the situation is?
Of course. Well, I tell our sales teams, we got to get more modern with our approach. We don't need to leave them hanging between that phone call and when they come in. So there's a follow-up in between there. And that's where we tell them, Mandy's our concierge. She's going to be greeting you when you come in to see me. You're going to park on the left side and parking spot 2. It'll have your name on it. Wow. That way they know what to expect. It's people, it's more soothing if they know what to expect. They've got a big hurdle of talking to mom or dad about this move, mm-hmm. right? So we want to take the easy stuff off. So we like to leave them in that follow-up knowing what to expect. So if they come into the tour, they've parked in their spot, they come in. We as sales professionals, that first 5 minutes of the tour is the most important, because that's when they make their first impression of the tour. They've already made their first impression of us online, mm-hmm. but their first impression of the tour, that we've got 5 minutes. And there's a couple things here they're looking for: how that greeting goes, how the concierge or whoever is greeting them treated them. Mm-hmm. The second one, and it's a big one, the nose knows, how the place smells. That's very, very important. Yes. The third one is, honestly, people used to think it's kind of silly. It's one of my faves, is how compassionate the team outside of just the sales professional is. Mm. Are teammates talking to residents? Or is it isolated? Does this feel like a place where they could care for my loved one? I feel like people who are touring nowadays are putting a lot of emphasis on that. What is the treatment? What does the overall team look like? What does that happiness look like? Mm. So we have 5 minutes in that greeting to answer all of those questions. And it really sets the tone for how much we're able to build rapport and trust during the discovery.
Pretty important 5 minutes.
It really is. It's crucial. It's very, very important 5 minutes.
Minute 6 is kind of like, well, you either did it or you didn't, I guess.
Well, then you're they're working to come back.
Okay.
And nobody wants that.
Okay, all right. So 5 minutes are critical. Typically, should they expect to maybe sit down first, get something to drink?
Of course.
Okay, maybe maybe there's a Q&A if they have any more questions, things like that.
So they come
Okay.
in, obviously get the drink. They're, guided towards a room where we do discovery, asked to, can we take your coat? Just a really warm, comforting greeting. We want them to be comfortable. We want them to be able to express what's going on with themselves or with a loved one. We really want to talk through that. And even in the discovery, we want to know what's important to them.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is it gets us out of feature selling, where we're not, okay, our community has a beautiful swimming pool. This is just example. Well, that swimming pool might not be the most important. Say they're touring a Mandy, and the swimming pool is not the most important thing because she's never learned how to swim. So that feature does not help us sell.
Sure.
But she is a recent widow and she needs the socialization. Well, if we learn that during the discovery and we're showcasing during that tour, that's part of the relationship building and the trust.
Okay. And then I'm assuming once all that's done, you start walking or scooting or whatever the situation is.
Correct.
Okay, all right. And at that point, I would think you were looking at like the dining rooms and then kind of like we call them common areas, but like places where people gather and enjoy themselves.
Of course, we're showcasing residents, team members, whether they're seeing them in person or we're doing a great deal of storytelling, which I'm sure when you toured with your mom, you either saw resident staff or people did storytelling. We've had residents with similar experiences.
Yes, that was very important, especially when we were, vacillating between assisted living and memory support. We needed to see both because we wanted to make sure, as she was progressing, we just had to make sure the memories. I didn't want to move her again, under another rooftop. So, is that pretty common where the residents may want to see all the levels of care if you offer that?
That's correct. A lot of people, they don't want to move them again. They want to put them in the right place the first time to what their most independent level is right now. They have to identify what that is, and sometimes it's just planning for the future. What future needs might be accommodated for me here at your community.
Sure. Okay. And then once the tour is over, well, you're going to see some apartments, obviously.
Yes.
They're not going to sleep on the floor, hopefully.
No,
okay.
Sure
okay. Not. All right. Picking apartments. And then how does the tour typically end?
So a lot of times, depending on the level of care, a good rule is the sit, stand, sit method.
Okay.
So you're sitting for the discovery, you're standing for the tour. Maybe halfway through the tour, there's more sitting, more talking about some of the needs and some of the things they've seen. We don't ever end the tour in the lobby. You end the tour right back in the discovery room. Or if you're real fortunate and they know they love the apartment, they know they want to move in, and you're ending it back in that model apartment that you showed them. But it's a private space where you're asking very direct questions. And this kind of helps, like you said before, them not hold on to all the things that mom or dad or they need, right? This really helps them get it out there and helps the sales associates answer objections and then obviously asking for the next step. And the next step in this case is hopefully a deposit, but sometimes it's not.
Okay.
Sometimes it's coming back in for a meal, or it's coming to an event, or it's coming and talking to some resident ambassadors, or our team's gotten really creative with staycations, where it's not just a one-size-fits-all approach, and it's part of our closing as well. Sometimes it's coming back in for an afternoon to do a puzzle with a resident that currently lives there. It's all those things to provide them comfort, to let them know this is home. This is the right community.
Sounds like kind of a nice, I don't know, it sounds nice. It should be nice, right? I mean, I've done some, what are those, timeshare presentations?
Okay.
Not nice. So it should not feel like that. Okay. You don't have someone with a bell and,
We do not do that.
Okay, got it. Great. I don't want that. And I would say, shopping personally, and I'm sure you've shopped hundreds of communities over your career. This isn't like going to the mall, right? It's a purpose for someone actually walking into the doors of senior living. And so it's important that we're all respectful of each other's time and efforts and things like that. And just be open and honest and kind to each other.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. Well, anything else you want to share?
I don't know.
Are you asking me for a deposit? Do you want to move in?
Well,
Maybe. There's some nice ones over on the
sure
summit.
is.
Yeah, we actually been staying here. It's actually pretty nice. All right, Evan. Well, thank you so much.
Thank
And thanks, everybody. We'll see you soon.